Well, it's a pleasure to have my friend, a conservative, running in the Republican primary in Arizona, J.D. Hayworth. How are you, sir?
Mark, I'm doing great. I wish you and those who are listening to us right now could be with me just a few miles out of Douglas, Arizona, very close to our border with Mexico. Mark, the scene is beautiful, and as striking as this scene is, that's as dangerous as it's become for the residents here. And, you know, gosh, I introduced that Enforcement First Act 5 years ago, and the Washington establishment, like Senator McCain, the man I'm challenging, they all tried to view this as a political problem to be managed. And now, Saturday, we had the tragedy of Rob Krentz, a local rancher, being killed. The Cochise County Sheriff, Larry Deaver, believes it was an illegal who came on his property and killed him. And so we're having a town hall meeting tonight up at the Apache School. I was invited down by Ed Ashurst, the great nephew of a former, the late great United States Senator Henry Ashurst here in Arizona. And I'm just here to listen and to be here with these people in their hour of need. And if nothing else is said about the campaign tonight, I just want to bring home to you and the folks listening to us right now how acute and dangerous and critical this situation is here on our border with Mexico.
Isn't it interesting, J.D. Hayworth, that John McCain is not running openly and aggressively on amnesty for illegal immigrants?
Yeah, you know, John has undergone a campaign year conversion. In fact, he yesterday in a television interview, he almost ran the gamut. He said he was for troops on the border now. He said he was for fencing, and heck, on top of that, he was for virtual fencing. Said all those things that just a month ago, at least in terms of fencing, he was absolutely against. You may recall that Janet Napolitano went up to Capitol Hill, went over to the Senate for a hearing on budget issues. And Senator McCain had the chance to call for troops on the border. He failed to do so. Senator McCain had a chance to challenge Janet Napolitano on the budgetary reductions. He failed to do so. In fact, Senator McCain badmouthed the whole notion of fencing, calling it, quote, a waste of millions of dollars. But now, that same John McCain, as we've seen on a variety of issues, whether it's the big bailout of the Wall Street banks, whether it's a cap and trade, whether it's now amnesty on the border, old John McCain is trying to change his tune to stave off this conservative challenge, and I just don't think Arizonans are going to be fooled this time, Mark.
Well, and this is a very, very serious national issue. You know, I have to be honest with you, J.D., I'm exhausted fighting this amnesty issue. We've fought it. We've won. You are a leading voice in it, and as a result, you were punished for it. And you have more guts and more energy. You're coming back. And what's McCain trying to do? First of all, he said money in politics is corrupt. And meanwhile, he's taken it in fist over fist. The Republican establishment is afraid to go against him. He's raising millions and millions of dollars in a system that he said was corrupt and he wouldn't do it. To do what? To run ads against you, correct?
Yeah, that's what he's doing. You know, it's funny for a guy who said that contributions corrupt all of us. I think that was the quote from that infamous campaign finance reform debate, that so-called reform, of course, totally against the First Amendment. Well, John seems to have gotten over that in the New York nanosecond. He's got millions of dollars from the Washington establishment. He's using it on attack ads against me. But here's the good news, Mark. Despite all that, all he's got to show for it is a swing of 15 points away from him and to me. And now we've narrowed the margin, according to Rasmussen, from a 22-point deficit. Now we're within 7 points of John McCain. And the reason why is because Arizonans understand when a guy is desperately trying to hang on to a Senate seat rather than trying to run on his record. So this is not going to work. And boy, you know, Mark, I would be remiss if I didn't publicly thank you and the hundreds, if not thousands of your listeners who went to our website, jd4senate.com. In fact, the McCain folks are already trying to brag. They say they've raised a couple of additional $1 million. Of course, again, most of it from the special interests. But listeners literally in every state in this union, Mark, a goodly number of folks who acted upon your recommendation and endorsement, they have been helping us. And again, today is the cutoff on this campaign finance report. We've only been running a campaign for 6 weeks, and Mark, we're within a hair's breadth of raising $1 million from so many conservative activists from coast to coast. Yes, the majority are in Arizona, but I'll tell you, even when Sarah Palin was down here last week for John McCain, I was signing thank you notes. I was signing one to a lady from North Pole, Alaska, who was helping us in this effort.
Well, let me just, JD,
yes.
let me just emphasize this. You know, if we are going to take this country back, we need to have committed, principled conservatives who say and believe the same thing from day to day, from year to year. If John McCain is reelected and has 6 more years, he's not going to care what the people of Arizona or the rest of the people in this country think. We know he's arrogant. We know he's stubborn. We know that we have a bunch of liberals on the federal court now and being pushed because of vacancies that should have been filled, but for him and Lindsey Graham and some of the others. We know full well that if this wasn't an election year for him, he'd be there standing side by side with Lindsey Graham, pushing amnesty for illegals. We know full well if this wasn't an election year, he'd be standing with John Kerry and others on cap and trade. This is his career, and if we are going to stop what Obama's doing and begin to reverse course, we have got to elect conservatives in fairly conservative states in Republican primaries, or this thing is going to get worse. Now it's JDforSenate.com, JDforSenate.com. Ladies and gentlemen, there are certain things we need to do to save our country. Now, I'm not saying that our country's lost if JD doesn't win, but I am saying we have got to elect conservatives and put them in place who are going to do what we want them to do, which is to stand for the Constitution. You know, JD, the Supreme Court has repudiated John McCain and his government control over free speech and the campaign process. Have they not?
They certainly have, and I was so happy to see that because they understood what you and I and so many other Americans understood. It is against the First Amendment. It is an encroachment on our free speech rights to have someone step in via so-called reform and limit what free men and women, what citizens can say about incumbent office holders or candidates for public office during a specified time period. That's patently unconstitutional. And the amazing thing was, when John McCain was asked about it, he actually said it would be a good thing to give up some of our First Amendment rights if we stopped, quote, corruption, close quote. You know, the sad thing is, I'm beginning to believe that John McCain thinks legitimate criticism is somehow corruption if it's aimed at John McCain. And that's a sad kind of reasoning, and that's why Arizonans are going to opt for me as a consistent conservative in this Republican primary on August 24th. But, Mark, you're so right. The website is jdforsenate.com, and, boy, if people could go there and help us, imagine the signal it would send to the Washington establishment if we're able to actually raise that $1 million this final day, get over that goal. It will help us on the road to victory, but in any circumstance, the grassroots stepping up from coast to coast as they've done, largely at your invitation, at your behest and endorsement, it is so gratifying, and I just want to thank you again for what you mean to the future of our constitutional republic and what you've meant to me personally as a friend and one who wants to see me elected to the U.S. Senate.
Well, you'd be a great